Welcome back to the deep end. You are listening to The Deep Dive, and today we are shifting gears.
We really are.
We're going full throttle. If you're tuning in from the Simplified UPSC by PPP YouTube channel, welcome home.
This is for you.
This is it. This is your dedicated, high-octane resource designed specifically for you. We aren't just, skimming the surface today. We are doing a full excavation.
That's right. This isn't just a casual chat about the economy or some abstract theory.
No.
This is a surgical strike on the syllabus. We are strictly decoding the NCERT Class 11 economics, specifically Chapter 8, but we are not stopping there.
Chapter 8, Infrastructure. And look, before you roll your eyes and think roads and bridges boring, just stop.
Please.
Because this is the chapter that explains why some states in India are sprinting while others are, well, barely crawling. It explains the difference between a booming economy and a stagnant one.
Exactly. We aren't just reading the book today, we are dissecting it. And more importantly, and this is why you are here, we are linking every single concept directly to previous year questions.
The PYQs.
All of them. We're talking 2013, 2016,
Yeah.
right up to the recent 2024 exams. We're going to show you exactly how the UPSC takes these textbook concepts and twist them into questions that determine your future.
High stakes. I love it. Now, before we jump into the data, and we have a lot of data today, we have a little bit of housekeeping.
Just a little.
If you are finding value in this deep dive, if this is helping you connect the dots in a way that just reading the textbook doesn't, we humbly ask you to subscribe to the Simplified UPSC by PPP YouTube channel.
Retention is key in this game. It really is. Subscribing helps you stay in the loop, and it helps us keep the lights on.
Yeah.
It tells us that this content matters to you.
And if you are capable, and if you enjoy this deep level of analysis where we really get into the weeds, please consider supporting us on Patreon. It really helps us sustain this kind of high-quality content creation.
It really does. It takes a lot of research to pull these PYQs and link them up like this.
A massive, massive shout-out to all our current supporters.
You guys are the fuel for this engine. We genuinely appreciate it.
Absolutely. Also, hit that like button, leave a comment. Tell the algorithm that serious learners hang out here.
Please do.
Now, regarding resources, you don't need to scramble to take notes while you're driving or working out. We have free notes with practice PYQs available right now on the public Telegram channel.
But you want the keys to the kingdom?
If you want the keys to the kingdom, I'm talking access to all videos in this series at once, plus the organized premium notes, which include detailed breakdowns, extra PYQs, and model mains answers. You need to join the private Telegram library.
It's all there.
Yeah.
Just DM us on the public Telegram channel, get the instructions for that. It is a game changer for revision.
It really is.
It puts everything in one place so you aren't hunting for files.
Okay, promo's done. Let's get to the mission. Chapter 8, Infrastructure. Why are we starting here? What makes this specific topic the backbone of development?
Because it's the answer to the why.
Yeah.
Why does Punjab look different from Bihar economically?
Yeah.
Why does Maharashtra attract investment while other states struggle? The source material suggests the answer isn't just luck or politics or geography alone.
It's something more fundamental.
It's the support system. It's infrastructure. Without it, you can have the best land and the hardest workers, and you will still fail to grow. It's as simple as that.
The text uses a really interesting analogy to kick things off. It says if the economy is a house, infrastructure is the foundation.
Right. It's the foundation, the plumbing, the wiring. You walk into a beautiful house, you see the paint and the furniture. That's the agricultural output, the industrial goods, the things we consume.
The visible stuff.
The visible stuff. But if the plumbing is broken, if the foundation is cracked, the house is unlivable. Infrastructure is the support system for all industrial and agricultural production. You don't always see it working, but you definitely notice when it breaks.
And the NCERT text actually breaks this down into two distinct buckets. I think this distinction is crucial because I've seen aspirants mix this up in mains answers.
Oh, all the time.
We have economic infrastructure and social infrastructure. Let's unpack this because it frames the rest of the conversation.
It is fundamental to get this right. Economic infrastructure is the hardware. It directly supports production. We are talking about energy to run machines, transportation to move goods, communication to take orders.
So it's the very direct inputs.
The most direct. If you are running a factory, this is the stuff that directly impacts your ability to make and ship a product. It's inside the production function, so to speak.
Okay, so that's the hardware. Then social infrastructure is the software. Is that a good way to think about it?
Perfect way to put it. Social infrastructure supports the economic system indirectly. It focuses on the human element.
People.
People. Education, health, housing. The logic here, and the text is very clear on this interdependence, is that you cannot have a robust economy with just roads and power plants. It's impossible.
Because someone has to drive the truck. Someone has to repair the power plant.
Exactly. You need healthy, educated people to operate the machines and drive the trucks. The text gives a specific example of this interdependence. It says you need healthy people, which is a result of social infrastructure, to work in the factories that are powered by electricity, which is economic infrastructure.
You can't separate them.
You cannot separate them.
Yeah.
If you build a high-tech factory in a region where everyone is sick with waterborne diseases and illiterate, that factory will fail. It will have no workforce.
That leads to productivity. The text makes a strong point that infrastructure essentially reduces the cost of production. This seems like a simple economic concept, but let's drill down into it.
Think about it from a very practical perspective. Imagine you are a farmer.
Okay.
If there are good roads, that's your economic infrastructure, you can get your seeds and pesticides quickly. That's your input side.
Cheaper, faster.
Right. Then, when you harvest, you can get the crop to the market before it rots. That's your output side. If those roads don't exist, if it's just a dirt track,
You're in trouble.
you're in serious trouble. You might have to pay a middleman a huge fee to transport it, or half your crop spoils on a bumpy cart ride. Your transport costs skyrocket, your wastage increases, and your productivity just plummets. Infrastructure lowers those barriers.
It also acts as a magnet. The text mentions Bengaluru. It didn't just become the Silicon Valley of India by magic.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It had world-class communication facilities established early on. Multinational companies, they flock to where the infrastructure is.
They're not charities.
Of course not. They don't want to bring their own generators and build their own roads. They go where the support system is already in place. It's a compounding effect. Infrastructure brings investment, which builds more infrastructure, which brings more investment.
A virtuous cycle.
Exactly.
And on the flip side, the text links infrastructure directly to health outcomes. It mentions morbidity. That's a specific term.
Morbidity just means the proneness to fall ill. It's not mortality, which is death, but sickness.
The rate of sickness in a population.
Precisely. The text links this directly to water and sanitation infrastructure. If your infrastructure fails to provide clean drinking water, your workforce gets waterborne diseases. Cholera, typhoid, dysentery,
Which are completely preventable.
100% preventable.
Yeah.
And if your transport infrastructure causes massive pollution because of bad roads or old vehicles, you get respiratory issues. So bad infrastructure doesn't just slow down trucks, it makes people sick, which in turn hurts the economy because they can't work.
So we've established that infrastructure is the foundation. It's the plumbing. Now, let's look at the reality on the ground. The source material paints a picture of where India stands. And honestly, it feels like we are playing catch-up.
Catch-up is generous. I would say it's generous. We're looking at a significant investment gap. The data provided compares India to other Asian economies.
Right.
And it says India invests roughly 34% of its GDP in infrastructure.
34%, that sounds okay. I mean, a third of the economy. That sounds substantial.
It sounds okay until you look at the neighbors. China invests 46%.
46.
Wow. Even Indonesia is ahead at 35%.
Yeah.
That 12% gap between India and China,
Yeah.
that explains the bullet trains versus the overcrowded locals. That explains the speed of manufacturing growth over the last 3 decades.
That's a massive gap.
That gap is the difference between leading the pack and struggling to keep up.
And the text makes a point that this target moves. It's not a static goalpost where you build a road and you're done.
Right. Infrastructure isn't a build it and forget it thing. It's not a one-time project. As income rises, the requirements change.
How so?
Well, a low-income country focuses on basic irrigation and getting a light bulb in a house. That's the priority.
Yeah.
Just the basics. But as you move to middle and high income, the demand shifts. Now you need high-speed data, advanced logistics, international airports, dedicated freight corridors.
The infrastructure gets more complex.
Far more complex, and if you don't keep investing, you hit a bottleneck. The infrastructure that worked for a low-income economy becomes the choke point for a middle-income one.
Speaking of bottlenecks, let's talk about the biggest bottleneck in the Indian story, the rural-urban divide. The data from the 2001 census cited in the text is, well, it's stark.
It's a reality check.
Yeah.
And even though the data is from 2001, the NCERT uses it to illustrate the structural legacy we are dealing with, a problem that has existed for a very long time.
Okay, let's look at the numbers.
In rural India, At that time, only 56% of households had electricity.
That means nearly half the rural population was living in the dark in
Oh,
2001.
literally. And 43% were still using kerosene. Imagine the fire hazard, the cost, the inefficiency, the fumes. And here is the one that hits health hard.
Let me guess, cooking fuel.
You got it. 90% of rural households were using biofuels, firewood, cow dung, agricultural waste for cooking.
90%. That has huge implications for indoor air pollution, primarily affecting women.
Massive. It's the equivalent of smoking packs of cigarettes a day just by cooking dinner. It is a silent killer.
And water?
Tap water availability was limited to only 24% of rural households.
So less than 1 in 4.
Less than 1 in 4. That means 3/4 of rural India was relying on open sources, wells, tanks, ponds, which, as we know, are vectors for disease.
This brings us perfectly to the previous year questions. The UPSC loves to test this divide. They don't just ask what is infrastructure, they ask about the inequality of it.
Always.
In 2013, they asked about PURA.
PURA, providing urban amenities in rural areas. This was Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam's vision, a beautiful vision.
And the question.
The question asked a comment on the basis of PURA being rooted in establishing connectivity. And this is exactly what we just discussed.
It's the core of the issue.
It is. You cannot uplift the rural economy without the physical connectivity like roads, electronic connectivity like telecom, and knowledge connectivity like education that urban areas just take for granted.
Right.
The goal of PURA is to bridge that infrastructure gap so you don't have mass migration to already overcrowded cities. The examiner wants to see if you understand that rural development isn't just about agriculture, it's about infrastructure parity.
And that links to the 2016 PYQ about smart villages versus smart cities.
Correct. That question was fascinating because it challenged the narrative. It wasn't a straightforward question.
It had a critical edge.
It did. It asked if the focus on smart cities would increase the rural-urban divide. The argument is, if you pour all your infrastructure investment into making Delhi and Mumbai smart with Wi-Fi and metros, while 90% of rural households are burning cow dung for fuel, you are creating a two-speed nation.
You are widening the gap.
You are actively widening it. The text suggests we need a balance. We need smart villages just as much. A smart village isn't necessarily one with sensors everywhere. It's one with clean water, 247 power, and a good road to the market. It's about smart basics.
And more recently, in 2024, there was a question about the UDAN scheme.
Ude Deshka Am.
Nagrik.
That's about regional air connectivity. Again, it's an infrastructure play.
Same theme, different scheme.
Exactly the same theme. It's about taking those economic hubs and connecting them to Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. It's the government trying to use infrastructure to spread development out, rather than keeping it concentrated in the metros. It's all the same fundamental question asked in different ways. How does infrastructure bridge the gap?
Okay, let's unpack one of the biggest components of economic infrastructure. The text calls it the engine of growth. Let's talk about energy.
Energy is everything. I mean, it really is the lifeblood. You cannot run a modern economy on firewood.
Right.
The text makes a clear distinction between commercial energy and non-commercial energy.
So commercial is what you buy. Is that the simple way to put it?
That's the simplest way, yes.
Yeah.
Coal, petroleum, electricity, things that have a market price. This makes up about 74% of the total energy consumed in India.
Okay, 3/4, and the remaining 26%.
That's the non-commercial energy. The firewood, the cow dung, the agricultural waste we just talked about.
Still more than 1/4 of our total energy.
And think about that. Over 1/4 of our energy still comes from these primitive sources. That statistic alone tells you a lot about the developmental status of the country. It tells you that for a huge chunk of the population, the modern economy hasn't arrived yet.
There's also been a fascinating shift in who is using the energy. The text notes that the transport sector's share of energy consumption has dropped, while agriculture's share has risen. That seems counterintuitive. We have more cars now, right?
We do, but the transport sector has become more efficient technologically. Steam engines are gone, replaced by efficient electric or diesel locomotives.
Better fuel economy in cars.
Right. But the rise in agriculture's share is the key story. It's due to mechanization and irrigation. Farmers are no longer just relying on rain. They're using electric pumps to draw groundwater.
And those pumps need power.
Massive amounts of power. This actually links to the Green Revolution. High-yield seeds needed a lot of water. That water needed pumps, and the pumps needed power. It's all connected. And where does that power come from? The text gives us the power generation mix from 2016. What's the picture look like?
It is a thermal-dominated mix. About 67%, two-thirds of our power comes from thermal sources. That means burning coal, oil, and gas.
So mostly fossil fuels.
Overwhelmingly. Tidal or hydroelectric is about 14%. And nuclear, it's a tiny, tiny 2%, just 2%.
This brings up the 2013 PYQ regarding atomic energy. The question stated that with the growing scarcity of fossil fuels, atomic energy is gaining significance. It asked about the availability of raw materials.
This is a classic geography economy link. Why is nuclear only 2%? Because India has limited uranium reserves. We have to import it, which is geopolitically complicated and expensive.
But the question hints at something else.
It hints at our vast reserves of thorium found in the monazite sands of Kerala. The debate, and the text alludes to this, is whether we should push for more nuclear using our thorium advantage despite safety concerns to reduce reliance on that 67% thermal chunk.
It's about energy security. It's entirely about energy security. If coal runs out or becomes too dirty, what's the backup? What is plan B?
It's the ultimate trade-off. But even with the power we do generate, the sector is facing a crisis. The text mentions that to sustain an 8% GDP growth, our power supply needs to grow at 12%. We are not hitting that.
No, we aren't. We're not even close. And the problems are systemic. They run deep. The text highlights the crisis of the state electricity boards, the SEs. These boards are incurring massive losses, over 500 billion rupees. That is a staggering amount of public money just evaporating.
Why are they losing so much money? Is it just incompetence or is it more complex?
It's a mix. A toxic mix. 3 reasons dominate. First, transmission and distribution losses, T&D. We lose power simply moving it from the plant to your house because of old wires and bad transformers.
It's lost to inefficiency.
Exactly. Second, wrong pricing. We give massive subsidies, selling power below the cost of production, especially to agriculture. The SEs buy high and sell low. It's a recipe for bankruptcy.
And the third?
Outright theft. Hooking onto the line. It's a huge problem in many parts of the country.
Theft is a big one, but the wrong pricing part hits hard on the human level. The text shares a heartbreaking anecdote about the Sirasilla tragedy in Andhra Pradesh. This really brings the dry economics down to reality.
This is where economics meets humanity. This is why you study this stuff. In Sirasilla, you had power loom weavers. Their entire livelihood depended on electricity to run their looms.
Okay.
Their wages were linked strictly to how much cloth they produced. When the power tariff was hiked, trying to fix that pricing issue we just talked about, and simultaneously power cuts became frequent because the SE was broke.
A double whammy.
A deadly one.
Yeah.
Their production dropped, their costs rose, they couldn't survive. 50 weavers committed suicide.
50. That is just heavy.
It is, but it's a necessary perspective for a civil servant. Infrastructure policy isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. It isn't just about balancing the SE books. It's life and death for vulnerable workers who live on the margins. When you raise a tariff, who pays the price? Is it the middle-class family who pays 50 rupees more, or the weaver whose entire profit margin just vanished overnight?
So what is the way forward for energy? We can't stay on coal forever, and we can't have weavers dying. The text talks about renewables.
Yes, the push for hydel and wind. This connects to another 2013 PYQ about India's green energy corridor.
The green energy corridor, what's that?
The idea is to create a dedicated transmission grid for renewable energy. See, solar and wind are intermittent. The sun doesn't always shine, wind doesn't always blow.
They're not reliable 2047?
Not on their own. So you need a robust, smart grid to handle that fluctuation, to balance the load when the clouds come out.
And on the consumer side, there's efficiency. The text mentions the Ujjala scheme.
Right. Unat Jyoti by affordable LEDs for all. Replacing those old incandescent bulbs with LEDs. Sounds small, right? Just changing a light bulb.
It seems almost trivial.
But the text notes it saves megawatts of power. And it saves families money on their bills. It's the low-hanging fruit of infrastructure reform. It's demand-side management. If you consume less, you don't need to build as many power plants in the first place.
Okay, let's pivot. We've done the hardware, the economic infrastructure. Let's talk about the software, the other pillar of infrastructure, health. The text calls it the pulse of the nation.
And it defines health broadly, which I think is really important. It's not just the absence of disease.
Right.
It is a yardstick of human well-being, physical, mental, and social. The government has a constitutional obligation to guide and regulate this. It's not a luxury, it's a right.
If we look at the history, we have come a long way since independence. The numbers are up across the board.
We absolutely have. In 1951, we had about 9,300 hospitals. By 2013, that number jumped to 44,000. That is significant capacity building.
And in terms of diseases,
We have successfully eradicated smallpox and guinea worms. Polio and leprosy are near eradication. These are massive, massive wins for social infrastructure. We shouldn't discount the progress.
but, and there is always a but in these chapters, there's a massive imbalance. The private sector seems to run the show.
That is the dominant theme in the text regarding health in India today. The private sector runs 70% of the hospitals in India.
70%.
They control nearly 40% of the beds. But here's the kicker statistic. 80% of outpatients visit private providers.
80%. So 4 out of 5 people who are sick go to a private doctor or clinic. Why is that a problem?
Because it creates a system based on ability to pay. The private sector dominates medical education, technology, and pharmaceuticals. If you have money, you get world-class care, you get the Apollo, the Fortis experience.
And if you don't?
If you don't, you are left with the public sector, which is severely underfunded and overburdened.
How underfunded are we talking?
The text cites a very low figure public expenditure on the health sector as roughly 4.7% of total GDP. Now compare that to developed nations, and it is low. It is very low.
And that low spending has consequences.
It has dire consequences. We face what's called the global burden of disease, or GBD.
Break that down. What is GBD?
GBD is an indicator used by experts. It essentially measures the number of people dying prematurely due to a particular disease, plus the number of years spent living with disability.
So it's a measure of lost years of healthy life.
Exactly. It measures the total impact of a disease on a population. And the text points out a shocking statistic. India bears 20% of the global disease burden.
1/5 of the world's sickness is here.
Is right here. Yet we have a fraction of the global infrastructure to deal with it. We are fighting a massive war with a tiny army.
And the divide isn't just rich versus poor. It's, again, that recurring theme, rural versus urban.
Yes. It's the same story, different sector. 70% of India's population lives in rural areas. But where are the hospitals? Only 20% of them are in rural areas.
That mismatch is incredible.
Think about that. 70% of the people, 20% of the facilities. There is a chronic shortage of primary health centers, PHCs, doctors, and even basic medicines in villages. So going back to our smart village concept, if you are a villager, you might have a smartphone, but you still have to travel hours to a city to see a competent doctor. That's not smart.
The text also highlights the specific impact on women's health. This part was particularly grim.
This is critical. The child sex ratio was declining 914 girls for every 1,000 boys in the 2011 census. That's a social infrastructure failure.
It's a societal failure.
It is. Over 50% of married women suffer from anemia. Maternal mortality rates, MMR, are high. This indicates that our social infrastructure is failing half the population. It's not just about building hospitals, it's about nutrition, education, and societal status.
Yeah, a hospital can't fix anemia if the woman is the last to eat in her household due to social norms.
Precisely. The problem is deeper than just bricks and mortar.
This links perfectly to the 2013 PYQ regarding the Millennium Development Goals, the MDGs.
Exactly. The MDGs were global targets set by the UN. They had specific goals related to health-reducing child mortality, improving maternal health, and combating HIV, AIDS, and malaria.
And the text forces us to ask how we're doing.
Right. Are our infrastructure investments actually helping us meet these global commitments?
Yeah.
If 50% of women are anemic, we are failing the maternal health goal. The infrastructure isn't reaching the people it needs to.
And another connection, sanitation.
You can't have health without sanitation. You just can't. The text explicitly links water and sanitation infrastructure to morbidity. If you solve the water problem, remember, only 24% tap water in rural areas, you solve a huge chunk of the health problem.
It's prevention.
It's preventive infrastructure versus curative infrastructure. It is always cheaper and better to prevent a disease than to cure it.
So we have covered energy and health, the hardware and the software. Now let's try to synthesize this. How do these themes come together, especially in the context of the mains exam?
One major theme that cuts across everything is the public-private partnership model, the PPP model.
Word.
The NCERT mentions the shift from government monopoly to private participation. And there was a 2013 PYQ that asked about the adoption of PPP model for infrastructure development and whether it is free of anomalies.
That's a tricky one. Free of anomalies. What does that really mean? What are they looking for?
It is tricky. They want you to be critical. The text suggests that while the government didn't have enough funds, that investment gap we talked about, the private sector brings efficiency and capital. That's the pro-PPP argument.
But the anomaly.
The anomaly is equity. As we saw with the health sector, privatization can lead to exclusion of the poor. So PPPs build roads and airports well because they can charge tolls and landing fees. There's a profit to be made.
But do they build rural PHCs?
Exactly. Do they build rural PHCs? Do they provide electricity to a remote village where profits are low? That's the critical angle for an answer. The anomaly is that the profit motive doesn't always align with social welfare.
Another synthesis point is environment versus development. This is a classic debate.
This is huge and very current. The 2024 PYQ asked about the role of environmental impact assessment, EIA, and NGOs in major projects.
So how does that connect?
We need energy. We need dams and thermal plants. That's development. But the text also mentions that thermal plants cause carbon emissions. Idle plants displace people and flood forests. That's the environmental cost.
So you can't have one without affecting the other.
Right. The deep dive takeaway here is that infrastructure cannot come at the cost of the environment. Sustainable development is the key phrase you must use in your answer. You can't just pave over the planet and call it growth.
And finally, the labor market. How does infrastructure tie into jobs?
Great question. The 2016 PYQ asked about globalization leading to the informalization of employment.
So more contract work, less job security.
Exactly. Infrastructure creates jobs, building roads, running power plants. But are they formal jobs with security? Or are they contract jobs with no benefits? The text's mention of the Syllabus weavers shows how vulnerable informal workers are to infrastructure shocks like power tariff hikes.
Because they had no safety net.
Zero safety net. If they had formal contracts or Social Security, maybe they wouldn't have been pushed to suicide. Infrastructure needs to create quality employment, not just gig work.
Wow, we have really unpacked a lot here. From the basic definition of infrastructure as the foundation to the grim reality of the rural health crisis.
We have. And if I had to summarize the key takeaways for you, it would be this. Infrastructure is the wheels of the economy. Energy needs efficiency, like those LEDs, and diversification like renewables. And health needs accessibility and equity, specifically bridging that massive, massive rural-urban divide.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a provocative thought, something to chew on as they go about their day.
The source material briefly mentions socialist societies like early China or Cuba. It notes that they prioritize basic health for all citizens, regardless of their income. It was a state priority.
Right, not a privilege.
All right. In contrast, capitalist structures often rely on the ability to pay. So as India moves aggressively toward privatization in health and energy, more private hospitals, more PPP models for power, the question is, how do we ensure the learner in the village or the weaver in Sirasilla doesn't get left behind?
Can we have both?
Can we have world-class infrastructure that is also equitable? That's the challenge. That is the challenge for your generation of administrators.
A powerful thought to end on. Keep questioning.
Indeed.
All right, that's a wrap for this deep dive into NCERT Class 11, Chapter 8. Once again, if this helped you, please subscribe to Simplified UPSC by PPP. We are building a community of serious learners here.
And if you can, please do support us on Patreon. It allows us to keep doing this research and linking these PYQs for you. And a huge thank you to our existing supporters. You guys are the best.
Don't forget to like, share, and comment below with your biggest takeaway from today. Was it the Sirasilla story, the health stats, the investment gap? Let us know. And remember, head over to the public Telegram channel for the free notes.
And DM us there to join the private library for the premium content video access, detailed notes, and model answers. It's all waiting for you.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning.
Goodbye.
See ya.